Hi everybody, this is Shelby, one of the registered dietitians at the Diabetes Program. In this video, we're going to be talking about healthy lifestyles and diabetes prevention. Specifically, healthy eating, the importance of exercise and physical activity, screen time, and sleep. A coordinating Jeopardy game is also available to test your knowledge after viewing this video. So let's start out by discussing the nutrition basics. So food and beverages are made up of nutrients, and there's two types of nutrients. We call them macronutrients and micronutrients. Macronutrients are carbohydrates, fats, and proteins, and these are things that our bodies need in large amounts. Micronutrients are our vitamins and minerals, and we need these in small quantities. And having a basic idea of what each of these macronutrients do in our bodies helps us better understand how what we eat affects our bodies and also helps us understand what foods are nutritious for our bodies. So let's dig in to each of these three macronutrients. So starting with fats. Fats are very energy dense and they help support healthy brains and nerve functioning. And there's a few different types of fats in the foods that we eat. So the first type of fats are unsaturated fats, and these are the healthy types of fats, and these are found in foods like nuts, seeds, avocados, peanut butter, and olive oil. Saturated and trans fats are not quite as healthy for us, and they should be consumed in smaller portions. Saturated fats and trans fats are found in foods like cheese, chips, butter, shortening, and fatty meats. So if you look at the pictures on the slide, in the top picture, those are primarily unsaturated fat sources. So you see the salmon, olives, there's some almonds, avocados, and some nuts on there. And then in the bottom picture, those are food sources of those saturated and trans fats. So you can see the deep fried French fries, candy, chips, ice cream, things like that. So our next macronutrient is carbohydrates, also known as carbs. So carbohydrates primarily provide our bodies with energy, and we need to consume a lot more carbohydrates every day than we do fat or protein. And as with fats, there is quite a few different types of carbohydrates, but today we're just going to focus on two different types, those being fiber and sugars. So sugar is a type of carbohydrate, and sugar can be found naturally in some foods, but it can also be added into a lot of what we eat and drink. So it's best to get our sugar that is found naturally in foods, such as in fruit, because this type of sugar provides energy and nutrition to our bodies. We want to try to limit our intake of added sugars. So that is foods and drinks like pop, juice, candy, and desserts that have sugar added to them. The second type of carbohydrate is fiber. And so fiber is a type of carbohydrate that is really important for healthy digestion. It helps us feel full after eating, and it helps keep our blood sugar levels stable throughout the day. So with fiber, our bodies actually don't digest fiber, but it's very important for our health. So in our digestive systems, we have lots of little bacteria that work to keep us healthy in a variety of different ways. And so just like us, these little bacteria need food, and fiber is the food for these bacteria. So that's why it's so important that we consume enough fiber. And like I said, even though fiber is really important, most people don't consume nearly enough of it. And so the best sources of fiber are found in foods that come from plants. So that would be fruits, vegetables, grains, beans, nuts, and seeds. And then so if we compare the two pictures on the screen here, the top picture has high fiber, low sugar carbohydrates. So we see on there some fruit and some vegetables like corn and potatoes and peas, but then we also have dried beans, oatmeal, rice, bread. All of those are great sources of healthy carbohydrates. And then in the bottom picture, those carbohydrate sources have a lot of sugar added to them or a lot of the saturated fats like we previously discussed. And our third and final macronutrient, is protein. And protein helps build healthy muscles and tissues in our body. So we need to eat enough protein in order to be healthy, but if we have too much protein for years and years, that can put extra stress on our kidneys. And so protein can be found in a wide variety of foods in our diet. We can get protein from animal foods like meat, fish, poultry, dairy products, and eggs. But protein is also found in some plant foods like soy, nuts, peanuts, and beans. So when we're thinking about protein, this is where knowing the different types of fat comes into play. So if we look at the two pictures on the screen, in the first picture, we see a variety of protein sources. So we have some lean red meat in the back of that picture, some fish, chicken, some eggs, looks like some yogurt, but then we also have nuts and dried beans. And so those are what we would call good sources of plant protein and also lean animal protein. So you can see the red meat in the top picture and the chicken doesn't have very much white fat on it. But if you compare that to the bottom picture, you can see the bacon on the bottom of the screen as well as some of the sausage. It has the large pieces of white in it. So that white is fat, specifically the saturated fats, like we talked about wanting to limit. So with our protein sources, we want to try to get most of our protein from lean animal sources or plant protein sources, and then have our more fatty animal proteins a little bit less frequently. So we can still have bacon, but we don't want to have bacon every single day. We want to make sure to get some of those protein sources like in the first picture as well. Right, so now that we know some nutrition basics, let's move on to some healthy eating principles. So on the screen here, you can see pictures of some plates. The large image is actually Canada's healthy eating plate. And then the small image on the top right is the US healthy eating plate, also called My Plate. And then below that is the My Native plate. So if you can kind of compare these, you'll see that they're all very similar, but they have small differences. And so these types of images and teaching tools serve to help us visualize healthy eating, as well as they help us make healthy meals. So let's review each section of the plate. And so to do this, I'm going to focus on the large picture, just because it has more pictures of food on it. So with all of these meals, you see they have a drink. Both of them, except for the My Plate, make water your drink of choice, which is a great strategy. And then about a quarter of the plate is some type of protein food. So you can see there, you also have eggs, looks like some tofu, some beans, but then some meat as well. And then another quarter of your plate would be grains, and those provide us carbohydrates. And then the other half of our plate, we want to be fruits and vegetables of all kinds of different colors. And so we can see here that a balanced plate contains all of those micronutrients, so a source of healthy fat, carbohydrates, and protein. So now we're going to shift to focusing on 5 healthy eating principles. So the first one we'll discuss is beverages. So with our beverages, we should try to drink water as much as possible. It's the healthiest drink for us. But we can also have unsweetened tea and flavored water are okay as well because they don't have sugar added to them. Low-fat milk or lactose-free milk or soy milk are all healthy beverage options as well, and they're good calcium sources. And the types of beverages that we want to avoid is sugary drinks. So that's things like pop, juice, sports drinks, energy drinks. All the sugar that these drinks contain is harmful to our teeth and our hearts. So if you look at the bottom picture on the screen, any of those types of drinks have a lot of sugar in them, so we want to try to limit them. The best recommendation I have there is, if you're at the store or at the gas station trying to pick out a drink, turn it over to the food label and scan until you see the word sugars or added sugars, and it'll tell you how many grams of sugar are in that drink. So we want that number to be as close to 0 as possible. Right, so our next healthy eating principle is fruits and vegetables. So fruits and vegetables are some of the healthiest foods that we can eat. They have high amounts of vitamins, minerals, but also fiber. And then each of those fruits and vegetables that are a different color, they contain different types of nutrients as well. The recommended minimum number of servings of fruits and vegetables per day is 5. And so that can be any type of fruits and vegetables you like. Fresh, frozen, or canned, or dried fruits like raisins, for example. All of these are good for us, and most of us need to eat more of them. So just focus on whatever fruits and vegetables you like and try to eat those as much as you can. Okay, so our next healthy eating principle is grains. So grain foods primarily provide us carbohydrates. So the thing with grains is there's some that have a lot of vitamins and a lot of nutrients and a lot of fiber, but there's some grains that have been really heavily processed, so they've been stripped of all of those good nutrients. So when we're discussing grains, you might hear people talk about whole grains and refined grains. So whole grains, all that means is the grains like the wheat, for example, or the oats in those grain products hasn't been as heavily refined. So they retain their fiber. So examples of whole grains would be things like wheat bread, oatmeal, brown rice, wild rice, and wheat pasta. And then our refined grains, that refers to foods that are made out of grains that have been heavily refined. So if you think about wheat, we process wheat and we can get wheat flour to make wheat bread. But if we keep processing that, we can get white flour from that. And then we can use that white flour to make white bread and other types of products. So those refined grains are the ones we want to limit, and that's because they have had their fiber and vitamins taken out of them. So our fourth healthy eating principle is trying to increase our intake of beans. So beans like black beans, pinto beans, refried beans, and also things like lentils are really rich in fiber and protein, which makes them really healthy. And so any of those types of beans on the screen are all really great options. So with beans, we can buy them dried in a bag that we have to soak and then cook, or we can purchase them pre-cooked in a can where all we have to do is open up the can, drain it, rinse off the beans, and we're ready to eat them. And so beans are great to add into things like tacos and burritos and burgers and salads and soups. So the more we can incorporate beans, the better, just because they do have so much fiber and so much protein in them. Right, so on to our last healthy eating principle, and that is breakfast. So we should aim to eat breakfast most days of the week. So this doesn't mean that you need to eat right away when you get up. Just eat sometime in the morning within a few hours of waking up. And the reason for that is because breakfast acts like fuel to our body and provides us energy and nutrients to get our day started. So this fuel and nutrients in our bodies, this helps improve our focus and our concentration. And so with breakfast, just as with our other meals, we want to make sure that we're choosing a healthy option and one that's going to keep us feeling full and keep our energy levels stable. So if we look at the pictures on the screen, the top picture, we have a piece of, it looks like wheat bread with some peanut butter, a sliced banana, and maybe like a small amount of granola sprinkled on it. So our wheat bread provides us carbohydrates and some fiber. The peanut butter provides protein, and then the banana provides some natural sugars and carbohydrates as well. So we're getting all of those 3 macronutrients because the peanut butter also contains healthy fats. But if we compare that top picture to the bottom one of Pop-Tarts, what we find primarily in Pop-Tarts is refined grains and added sugars. Pop-Tarts really don't have any fiber. They don't have really any protein. So it's basically carbohydrates and sugar that our bodies digest really quickly. So when we eat foods that are really high in sugar and don't have any fiber and protein and healthy fat, especially at breakfast, that can lead us to having a little bit of an energy crash later in the day. So with breakfast, we want to try to make sure we have some fiber and some protein and make it a lower sugar option. All right, so the last part of the lesson today is going to cover other lifestyle factors that help keep us healthy. So the first topic is physical activity. So at least 1 hour of moderate to high intensity physical activity every day is recommended. So regular physical activity is important because it helps with our body weight regulation, and it helps us build strong bones and strong muscles, which is especially important when you're still growing and your bones and muscles are still developing. And it also helps us to form healthy habits. So at your age, you begin establishing habits that you'll carry over into adulthood, which is why we want to form healthy habits such as getting enough sleep, being physically active, not smoking, and eating healthy when we're young, so that way as we grow up, those are our habits. So with physical activity, there's many ways to get activity every day. And in fact, participating in a variety of types of activities not only makes exercising more fun, but also the variety benefits our bodies in different ways. So for example, running, that gets our heart beating faster and gives us good cardiovascular exercise. But stretching helps obviously stretch our muscles, and strength training helps us build strength within our muscles. So while it adds more variety for us, it also helps our bodies in different ways. So with physical activity, the most important thing is to find something to do that you like doing. So with physical activity, we don't want it to be something that we hate. So find whatever you like to do and just try to be active every day. So that could be participating in sports, running, walking, doing things like yoga or Zumba, or lifting weights or riding a bike, stretching, walking your dog, whatever you like to do. And so with that, at least 3 times a week, we want to try to include some type of muscle strengthening activity. And that could be weightlifting, body weight exercises like squats and push-ups and sit-ups, or yoga where you hold the poses, as this helps build strong muscles and strong bones. So with that, it's also important to incorporate stretching or flexibility type exercises, as this helps prevent injuries, promote good balance, and improves athletic performance if you participate in sports. So lastly, let's discuss the intensity of exercise. Intensity refers to how hard we are exercising or how much effort we are putting in. So for example, sprinting is a high intensity exercise as compared to walking, which is a low intensity exercise. So we want to try to exercise and get our physical activity at a moderate to high intensity level. So that's enough to feel our heart rate increase while we're exercising. So our next topic is screen time. So it's best to limit our screen time to 2 hours or less per day. So that would be things like TV, video games, computers, our phone. And right now, most of us are getting way more than 2 hours of screen time per day. So the best thing to do here is try to limit your recreational screen time, like watching TV, video games, and being on your phone, to 2 hours per day, because for most of us, we have to spend time on the computer for school or work. So our next topic is sleep. So around 8 to 11 hours of sleep per night is recommended for preteens and teens. And sleep is so important because it is critical for our health and body functioning. It's crucial for our brain functioning, including concentration and learning. And adequate sleep has also been linked to lower risks of heart disease, as well as improved appetite regulation and body weight maintenance. So sleep is really important, so do your best to try to get at least 8 hours of sleep every night. All right, so now on to our last topic of diabetes. So one of the reasons why living a healthy lifestyle is important is to decrease our risk for the development of chronic diseases like diabetes and heart disease. So with diabetes, there's two types. Type 1 diabetes cannot be prevented. Type 2 diabetes is a type of diabetes that can be prevented and managed through lifestyle changes like healthy eating and physical activity. So what diabetes means is essentially that there's too much sugar in our bloodstream. So if you look at the graphic, when we eat, our body digests the food and drink and takes anything we eat that has sugar or carbohydrates in it and breaks it down into glucose. So that glucose is another word for sugar. So that goes into our bloodstream, and then our blood sugar goes up. And so then what happens is our pancreas in our body releases a hormone called insulin. And so insulin is what helps our cells open up and let that glucose in there or that sugar in there. So when the sugar leaves our bloodstream and goes into our cells, our blood sugar level goes back to normal, and then our cells use that sugar as energy. So when we have diabetes, two things can happen. Either our body doesn't produce any insulin, or it doesn't produce enough insulin, or in step 3 on this picture, when our cells normally respond to insulin and let the glucose in, sometimes our cells are resistant to insulin, meaning the insulin just doesn't work as well to get those cells to open. So if we have diabetes, it's important to go to the doctor regularly, to take our medications, and to live a healthy lifestyle in order to keep our blood sugars under good control. And that's because if we have diabetes and our blood sugars are too high and our blood sugar isn't controlled for a long period of time, this is damaging to our bodies. It can lead to heart disease, vision loss, kidney disease, nerve problems, and more. So if we have diabetes, the best thing to do is control it by going to your doctor, taking your medications, and living a healthy lifestyle. So the best way to know what our blood sugar is to check it periodically. So there's two main types of tests that we do to check our blood sugars. So the first one is called an A1C. So an A1C is a test that measures your average blood sugar over the previous 2 to 3 months. So this is what we check when we check your blood sugar at school. And so on the screen, you can see what a normal A1C is, what pre-diabetes A1Cs are, and what is considered diabetes. And the other test that we use is called a random blood sugar. And this is the type of blood sugar check that if someone has diabetes, you might see them check their blood sugar before they eat or after they eat or before they take their medication. That tells us what our blood sugar is right now. And so both of these tests are helpful to check our blood sugars and should be done periodically to monitor our blood sugars and screen for diabetes. So thank you for watching this presentation, and if you have any questions on anything I discussed today, please call the diabetes program. Otherwise, on the screen is the link to the Jeopardy game if you'd like to test your knowledge of everything we talked about today. Thank you.